A huge order cancellation, an update to the 737 MAX aircraft retirements, and more are all covered in today's aviation news recap, discussing all the latest developments within the aviation industry, all in the one place, and topics in bite-sized format for you all.
BB 851, turn right, heading 180. Order 14 Papa, turn right 245, report localizer established 27.
And for all those people that have been asking, I have also joined up to Patreon. The link will be in the description, or you can search me by DJ's Aviation if you're interested in supporting the channel and what I do here a little bit more. The aviation industry has been bleak for a long time now. However, it doesn't mean that there isn't still some bits of interesting news here and there, and that's the case today. Beginning proceedings like I always do in these recaps with a new aircraft order. By no means is it the most intriguing or the biggest at this point in time, and I'm sure many others will take though whatever we can actually get. BOC and Indigo are the pair in question, with a leaseback agreement being signed with Indigo for a total of 8 new Airbus A320neo aircraft that will be joining up with the airline in the second half of the 2021 calendar year, should everything go according to plan. The Chief Acquisition and Financing Officer of Indigo said, "We are pleased to further strengthen our existing relationship with BOC Aviation. The addition of these 8 A320neo aircraft demonstrates our confidence in the future growth of the aviation market in India." While the Managing Director at BOC also commented on the partnering between the two, saying, "We are delighted to partner once again with Indigo, India's largest passenger airline, as we continue to support our airline customers to finance their aircraft deliveries." The Boeing 737 MAX mean roll has been approved to fly once again within Australia, following almost 2 years on the ground, and also becomes, in doing so, the first country in the Asia-Pacific region to unground the type. They also follow in the footsteps of the EASA, FAA, Canadian Transport Regulator, the Brazilian Aviation Regulator, and many more that have all restored their faith in the type and allowed airlines to resume operations with it. You might be asking how the ungrounding impacts Australia and Asian Pacific carriers. Well, it doesn't make a huge difference immediately, but it will eventually allow Singapore Airlines and Fiji Airways to operate their 737 MAXes onto select routes within Australian airspace. However, it does allow Singapore Airlines under Silk Air and Fiji Airways to operate their Boeing 737 MAXes onto select routes within Australian airspace. However, these areas will still need their own approval to be able to fly in their own specific airspace to actually naturally reach Australia and make these said routes happen. In the future, Virgin Australia, under their new administrators following filing administration last year with the emergence of the pandemic, are also still planning on welcoming on the Boeing 737 MAX to their operations in the future. They currently have an order totaling to 25 of the type that will eventually be fulfilled. News surrounding Norwegian has continued, and it includes not just an order cancellation, but further reduction plans in regards to fleet from the carrier moving forward. According to Reuters, the airline, which filed for bankruptcy protection in not only Norway but also Ireland last year, has managed to successfully reach a long-awaited deal with lessors to see 36 aircraft leases terminated effective immediately. The carrier is continuing to downsize its fleet operations overall in a bid to restructure, and, while you could say improve its business model, and while that would be true, their ultimate goal is actually just simply trying to survive in an unforgiving industry that has battered them over recent years. As part of the changes, it'll scrap its entire international operations, something I have already covered on the channel, and therefore in doing so say goodbye to its Boeing 787s, which you could pretty firmly say gave them more troubles than benefits. We saw the Trent 1000 engine problems really hit the Boeing 787 in 2018 and 2019, and unfortunately, as they were Package B and Package C, they really only impacted select airlines. One of the airlines that was heaviest hit was Norwegian, and as they solely used the Boeing 787 for their international operations and they were already struggling, their international network during these years took a massive hit. In fact, they were the airline that we saw draft on the HiFly Airbus A380, which has now been retired, and problems still went on with the acquisition of that for a short period of time. Just as Norwegian was maybe looking to improve, the global pandemic hit them hard, and really hard, and they've been struggling to stay afloat ever since. I've often compared it to a sinking boat that looks so close to failing, but is always just showing signs of hovering above the water's edge before dipping right below. Norwegian will be doing everything in their power to ensure that they can survive within the industry. The carrier also noted that it will be saying goodbye to all its remaining orders that it has with Airbus, an order that was originally placed nearly 10 years ago and actually consisted of 100 aircraft. Only a handful of those at the moment were ever delivered to the carrier. The remaining 88 or so that are still unfulfilled will now be removed as the carrier looks to restructure. Meanwhile, over at Boeing as well, the two have entered into a new deal. Boeing have, of the two aircraft manufacturers Norwegian is in communication with, been less lenient with the changes. Norwegian have already gone through the multiple cancellations with Boeing for the 737 MAX and 787 aircraft, while also looking at selling 737 NGs. The 737 MAX though and 787 are two of which you could say have been the most problematic for Boeing in the past 2 years as well. Local media in Saudi Arabia have also hinted at a potential new order from the national carrier, Saudi Arabian Airlines, for both Airbus and also Boeing aircraft. The current reports are noting that the order could amount to up to even 70 aircraft. However, this is by no means the very first time that the airline has announced, or at least rumours from national media, have emerged hinting at the airline looking to expand its fleet operations. If you were with the channel back in 2018, you would remember and maybe note that it actually wished to expand its fleet to 200 aircraft by last year. That could have included the 777X, as I'll get into later. Now though, in 2021, it currently has just over 150 aircraft, and while the pandemic has certainly impacted its overall goals, it'll be interesting to see what aircraft the carrier looks to move forward with in the future, should this order take place. They are looking towards the Boeing 787 and 777 aircraft, which is something that has already been discussed. They are already a large operator of the 777 aircraft, with around 30 in their fleet, and discussions years ago indicated to us that they might even look towards the Boeing 777X, the newer variant of the series that could really do with an order boost. Finally, for smaller aircraft, the Airbus A321neo is another option that has been listed as well. Uganda Airlines have also featured prominently in these aviation news recap videos of late, with the airline welcoming on its two A330neos, but the Dash 800s, in recent months. Of course, this is the least popular variant of the two that's recently been released by the European aircraft manufacturer. Following them welcoming these two on, they announced plans to launch international services through to London Heathrow last week as well, with the Type. The flight is actually set to commence this month, specifically on the 28th of March, and will be an initial 5-weekly service. The airline is a new one, was only actually launched some 2 years ago back in 2019. And as we know, slots into Heathrow are of course highly valuable and naturally usually very expensive, especially if you want those prime time slots. They can sell for tens of millions. However, thanks to the pandemic, that has also been greatly adjusted, with some slots now remaining empty as airlines have pulled out from the airport, or of course reduced their daily services, as demand has been non-existent. The A330neos won't only fly through to London Heathrow though. There are plans tentatively to see them fly to Dubai, Guangzhou, and finally Mumbai in India in the future as well. Of course, this is permitting travel restrictions and so forth. Our final story for this recap centres around Austrian Airlines, who said goodbye to their very first Boeing 767 in recent days. The type which left from Vienna was given a fitting farewell as Cruise and More said goodbye to the type. More Boeing 767-300ERs are set to leave the carrier's operations this coming year as well, but this specific type was actually first delivered in 1991, although it was integrated with the Austrian Airlines fleet in 2004 following a takeover of Lauda Air. Since then, just like a number of other Boeing 767s in service, or that even have recently departed, it has been a true workhorse and completed tens of thousands of flights and over 100,000 total flight hours, spending nearly 15 years of continuous time in service since its delivery in 1991, now 30 years ago. So essentially, for half of its entire life, it has been in the skies operating passengers around the world, a workhorse and an aircraft that is definitely going to be enjoying its retirement. That concludes today's aviation news recap. A long one, but hopefully you had many interesting stories that you learnt about in today's video. These have been doing quite well, and I know you all have been greatly enjoying them. So once again, like I always say, if you have any thoughts on the topics that I discussed, Whether that be Uganda Airlines expanding to London Heathrow, the 737 MAX being ungrounded in Australia, or maybe my main focus on Norwegian for this video, feel free to drop them in the video comments. Until the next video, please take care, stay safe, and I will naturally see you next time.